Thank you for watching. I have the president of Rio Grande Foundation, Paul Gessing, on the show with me today, and we're going to talk about all kinds of good stuff going on around the state. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom, but we won't get right into the doom and gloom, but kind of let's start out with a little bit light. That way you can tell us what you're working on lately, and I know you're a busy person there. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Economy, we'll start there. I know, give me your point of view, that way people can see your point of view and how you see what the pulse of the economy is in New Mexico.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Well, New Mexico is suffering from some job losses, even relative to surrounding states. We really face some issues, but Rio Grande Foundation approaches the economic issues from the free market, limited government perspective. Our view is that government regulations tend to, more often than not, hinder economic activities. And I'm not saying basic stuff like don't pollute your neighbor's yard or property or something like that, but a lot of the regulations that nowadays government piles on top of other regulations and taxes and a lot of the things government does just infringe upon the economic freedom of individuals to make their own lives better. And our general view is that if we maximized freedom relative to the government's role, we'd all be more prosperous and better off. And New Mexico historically has not been as economically free, and that's one of the reasons we're among the most impoverished states in the nation.
You know, when I don't knock anybody on the show, when the current governor came in, we were kind of hoping that some on the left were saying that, well, the austerity measures might work. We may be able to lure some businesses here. The opposite happened. And I'm not pinning anybody down. Like I said, sometimes there is a lack of will there, and sometimes just the policies don't work for the functioning companies when you're looking at it from their point of view. They look at our culture down here in the state. They are looking for incentives, right? So if we're looking as far as bringing a company like Tesla, and you know, we went back and forth with some of my other guests there, and I always bring up Tesla and say, well, what is it that Tesla is looking for? We don't really know that. All we know is that it's competing. There's 3 states that are competing for it. Rick Perry went to San Francisco or California, Sacramento, looking for that business to come to Texas. Why is it that we haven't had that same luck, or in that sense, that same tenacity to go after larger businesses? Do you think it's a cultural thing? Is it a policy issue? What do you think your opinion is in that?
This is the stuff of college dissertations.
Okay.
When the governor came into office, she said she was going to eliminate the budget deficit. I think it was around $400 million, give or take, without raising taxes. She did do that. New Mexico, though, and this precedes the governor and continues to this day, is way too reliant on the federal government spending within our borders. We all know about the labs. We know about the military installations and whatnot. Just generally speaking, though, New Mexico has been tremendously reliant on that. And that's kind of the area where we've seen a lot of the reductions in what's going on. The private sector economy has struggled mightily as well. And we blame just the general lack of free market policies. The governor has a hostile legislature, Democrat controlled, and I would like to personally have seen her be much more aggressive in proposing kind of her vision of a clean, free market shift in the economy. What she's done is very small tax cuts when she's done them. She'll tell you 24 tax cuts.
Why do you think the tax cut, I don't mean to interrupt you, why do you think the tax cut didn't work? Why,
well, I don't think...
From a larger corporation point, you're looking for tax cuts, right? So was there some other foundational stuff that happened behind the scenes where we didn't have enough backdoor channels, or why is it that we can't?
The biggest tax cut that was proposed / enacted was a corporate income tax reduction. But it's 5 years that it's going to take the tax.
So there's a duration there. Where
and it's just getting started. And the corporate income tax is it's a very harmful tax, but it's a very small revenue source for the state. In fact, the year that tax was passed, the tax, when it's implemented fully in 5 years, will reduce the revenue of the state by less than the spending increase of that year alone. So spending went way up, but this tax is not going to reduce revenues very much. But on top of that, Las Cruces in particular has already gone and raised its gross receipts tax to fill in the gap, because this wasn't an actual real tax cut. It was a tax transfer where you had local option taxes imposed or potentially imposed by cities around the state. And Las Cruces has already done that. So if I were the governor, it's more about messaging and staying on, we're going to lower taxes and reduce regulations, not just go along with what the legislature is willing to give us, which I believe are crumbs in terms
But
of
as
economic
the chief executive, she could have, do you think there was something that, as far as, look, I understand there's a lot of interest in the state. It's not one person conducting, she's not a dictator, we understand that.
Right.
So the whole point is that there's either a lack of will or there is a lack of support there within her own administration as far as bringing business. We're the only one of the 2 states that lost jobs. Everybody else around us gained, well, Texas, we can't even talk about that because they're totally blowing the charts. Same with Nevada. Colorado is doing very good. Utah is doing good.
Right.
Arizona is doing good. When you look at some of the chief executive or governors, you take them, there is some other fiscal policies that they adhere to that are working for them. So I'm trying to figure out, as somebody who looks at policy and says, well, let's see, we thought austerity might work, and I give her a fair chance, say it might work. But when you're seeing after a few years that it haven't quite worked in the short term, I don't know how it's going to do in the long term, but do you see this in the long term, something as far as whatever she implemented now might have an effect?
Well, austerity alone, and austerity in my vision is a reduction in spending to presumably cure some kind of deficit situation.
And do you agree with it during the recessionary period with the austerity measures? Do you think it's always good to do, from your point of view?
It's better than raising taxes, but there's a nuance here. Not raising taxes is not enough to make the economy grow. New Mexico has long-standing tax, regulatory, education, a wide variety of things that are hindering our economy for the long term. And those are the policies that need to be addressed in Santa Fe.
There's a lot of issues there behind the scenes that I know most people don't get to see. Naturally, we try to find out what's going to work, what's not going to work. I always try to look at policies for what they are. I don't try to discriminate and say, well, this is not going to work or that's not going to work. I said, let's give it a chance. Let me take a break. We'll come back and we'll continue.
Great.
We'll take a short break and we'll be right back.